There's something deeply powerful about a woman who doesn't rush toward a man, yet never needs to run away either. She isn't cold, she isn't playing games, she's simply rooted in her own life. Her world doesn't pause just because someone shows interest, and men feel that. On a level they rarely admit, they obsess over it. See, men don't fall for the woman who chases. They fall for the woman who is busy becoming the best version of herself. The woman who isn't always the first to call, not because she's trying to manipulate the connection, but because she understands this truth. If he wants a place in her life, he will find the courage to step toward her. A man becomes obsessed not with her absence, but with the energy she carries in that absence. An energy that says, "My heart is open, but my life is full." When she doesn't reach out first, she quietly communicates something men rarely hear. "I don't need attention to feel valuable." This disarms him. It captivates him. It draws him in deeper. Because a woman who does not rush is a woman who cannot be rushed. She has standards. She has boundaries. She has a life she respects. And men are wired to pursue what feels meaningful. When she doesn't reach out first, he starts thinking about her when he wakes up. He replays their last conversation. He wonders why he's checking his phone so often. He starts imagining what it would be like to earn her time, her affection, her presence. She becomes the woman he can't shake from his mind, not because she's distant, but because she's balanced. She's warm when he shows up, but she never abandons herself in the process. She gives, but she doesn't overextend. She's interested, but not overeager. She's present, but not predictable. This is not about silence. It's about self-worth. It's about honoring a simple principle. If he wants you, he will move. And if he doesn't, his lack of action is your answer, long before your heart wastes its loyalty. When a woman stops initiating, something extraordinary happens. She gives him room. Room to think, room to wonder, room to pursue, room to step into his masculine responsibility. And in that space, a man reveals everything: his intention, his desire, his maturity, his consistency. The woman who doesn't reach out first isn't testing him. She is simply allowing him to show who he really is. And in a world where so many women overgive just to be chosen, she chooses differently. She chooses herself first, her peace first, her self-respect first. And that choice, quiet, steady, unwavering, is exactly why he becomes obsessed. He sees that winning her heart isn't about luck. It's about effort, character, presence, consistency. And any man who's ready for something real, something deep, something extraordinary will move mountains for a woman like that. Not because she refuses to reach out, but because she lives in a way that makes him reach toward her again and again. Scarcity creates value not because it's a strategy, but because human nature is wired to pay attention to what isn't endlessly available. When a woman doesn't always reach out first, something profound happens in a man's mind. He doesn't experience her as distant, he experiences her as precious. Her attention stops feeling like something he can take for granted. It begins to feel like something he has to rise to earn. A man may not consciously articulate this, but he feels it. When a woman reaches out constantly, replies instantly, and fills every silence, he unconsciously categorizes her presence as something guaranteed. And what is guaranteed often becomes invisible, not because he's unkind or ungrateful, but because the human brain naturally devalues anything it doesn't have to work for. We drift toward ease, but we respect effort. This is why a woman who doesn't reach out first has a different kind of gravity. She gives him the gift of effort. She gives him the experience of pursuit. She gives him the internal satisfaction of meeting her halfway instead of being carried by her availability. Her space creates curiosity. Curiosity creates reflection. Reflection creates desire. In those quiet moments when she doesn't message first, he finds himself thinking about her, not because she's using silence as a tool, but because she allows life to flow without interrupting it. For someone who hasn't shown consistent investment yet, he begins to wonder, what is she doing? Who is she with? What has her attention? What makes her so fulfilled that she doesn't need constant connection? These questions pull him closer. They activate the part of him that wants to understand her, reach for her, and step forward in a way that feels intentional. Scarcity is not about withholding love or affection. It's about not oversupplying it before there is a foundation. When a woman doesn't reach out first, she is communicating a deeper truth without words. She values her energy. She values her time. She values her peace. She will not pour herself endlessly into someone who has not shown the willingness to pour something back. This becomes magnetic to a man. A woman who is selective feels like a woman with a rich inner world. She isn't desperate for validation or addicted to checking her phone. She lives a life with purpose, connection, growth, and meaning. When she finally responds, when she finally gives attention, when she finally invests, it feels earned, and that makes it feel extraordinary. A man instinctively cherishes what he has to work for, not because he loves difficulty, but because what he fights for becomes intertwined with his identity. His effort gives the connection weight. When she doesn't reach out first, he gets to step into the role he naturally feels most confident in, the role of a man who takes initiative. And the more he invests, the more he values what they're building. This doesn't mean she ignores him or pretends not to care. Her power lies in being warm when she receives effort, but never being the one who initiates it out of fear, anxiety, or longing. She isn't closed off, she's simply balanced. She has learned that love without effort becomes obligation, interest without pursuit becomes passivity, and relationships without reciprocity become resentment. Her scarcity isn't manufactured. It's authentic. It comes from a life full of responsibilities, passions, routines, and goals. She is already whole. She is already enough. She does not chase because her life does not depend on who texts first. And this is why he obsesses, not over the silence, but over the woman who created it without trying. A woman who moves in her own rhythm becomes unforgettable because a man feels her absence, and that absence reveals her value more clearly than any words ever could. Men value what they work for, not because they're stubborn or prideful, but because emotional investment grows through action. When a man has to step forward, initiate, and put his energy into building a connection, he becomes naturally more attached to the process and the person. This is why when a woman doesn't always reach out first, she creates the conditions for him to invest in a way that feels meaningful and self-driven, not forced or prompted. Effort activates something primal in men. It awakens their purpose, their focus, their sense of direction. A man feels most connected to what he builds, not what is simply given to him. When everything comes too easily, attention, affection, reassurance, he may enjoy it, but he won't anchor himself to it emotionally. The connection becomes passive for him, something he receives rather than something he contributes to. And passive connections rarely grow into deep desire. But when a woman leaves that initial space, he must make a choice. He must reach for her. He must take the step. He must be the one to show interest through action rather than words alone. And in doing so, he becomes invested in a way that reshapes the entire dynamic. His mind begins to associate her with his effort, his initiative, his movement. Suddenly, she's no longer just someone he likes. She becomes someone he's building something with. This is powerful because human beings protect what they invest in. When a man reaches out first, plans the date, checks in, and chooses to pursue, he feels like he has skin in the game. His energy is now intertwined with the connection. His effort becomes a reflection of how much she matters to him. He begins to value her presence not as something handed to him, but as something he actively participates in creating. When he invests, he also becomes more attentive. He listens more carefully. He watches her reactions. He becomes aware of her feelings. He becomes more responsible with his behavior because he understands that relationships aren't sustained by desire alone. They're sustained by showing up. His effort gives him a sense of ownership. Not ownership over her, but ownership over his role in the relationship. A woman who never reaches out first isn't withholding anything. She's giving him the opportunity to demonstrate his interest in a measurable way. She's giving him the space to prove that he wants to be there. She's giving him room to step into his strength, to lead, to initiate, to contribute. And men feel more confident in relationships where they can play an active part. When he works for her attention, he appreciates it more deeply. He recognizes that her warmth is a response to his consistency. He knows that her presence is something he earned through genuine effort. This creates emotional depth because he's not just receiving affection, he's participating in its creation. A man who invests also becomes more intentional. He's not texting her because he's bored. He's not calling because he has nothing else to do. He's choosing her. He's prioritizing her. He's carving out space for her in his mind and in his routine. An intentional effort builds emotional momentum. Each action he takes pulls him closer to her. Each choice strengthens his attachment. When everything is initiated by the woman, he never gets the chance to step forward. He never gets to feel the pride of being part of something meaningful. He becomes reactive instead of active. And reactive men rarely form strong emotional bonds. But when she steps back just enough to let him move, something shifts within him. His effort turns into affection. His affection turns into connection. His connection turns into commitment. Because once a man invests emotionally, it becomes difficult for him to simply walk away. He's tied to the energy. He's poured in. He's bonded to the moments he chose to show up. His effort becomes the foundation of his desire. This is why a woman who doesn't reach out first isn't playing games. She's giving him the path to emotional investment, a path every man needs to walk if he is going to truly value, cherish, and commit to her. Mystery is not about being confusing or distant. It is the natural allure created when a woman doesn't rush to be fully available. When she isn't always the first to reach out, a man experiences something that is essential to attraction: curiosity. Curiosity is the spark that activates pursuit. It's the feeling of wanting to know more, wanting to understand, wanting to get closer. And without it, interest fades quickly. When a woman doesn't initiate contact, she gives a man the room to wonder about her, not in a stressful or anxious way, but in a way that makes him lean in. A woman who isn't predictable becomes captivating. She isn't playing hard to get. She's simply living at her own pace, in her own rhythm. And that subtle unpredictability pulls a man's imagination toward her. He begins thinking about how she feels, what she's thinking, and whether he matters to her. That wondering keeps her presence alive in his mind. Mystery awakens something inside a man that routine cannot. Routine makes everything feel settled, known, and sometimes taken for granted. But mystery shakes him out of autopilot. It reminds him that she is a world he hasn't fully discovered, a world with layers, depth, and experiences that he wants to explore. When she doesn't reach out first, he doesn't fall into the comfort of assumption. He doesn't assume she'll always be there. He doesn't assume she's waiting. He realizes he has to move toward her if he wants to keep the connection alive. This is where attraction deepens, because in that space of curiosity, he starts imagining things about her. He starts projecting his desire, his admiration, his appreciation. He begins noticing the small details she shared. He replays conversations. He wonders what she meant by something she said. He thinks about her smile, her tone, the way she carries herself. Mystery makes every memory feel vivid. It gives him something to chase, not a person who is withdrawing, but a person who is fully occupied with her own life. A woman who doesn't always message first sends a silent message. She has her own world, and men find that world irresistible. They want to be invited into it. They want to earn a place in it. When she isn't constantly reaching out, she shows that she has depth beyond the connection. She has inner resources, goals, passions, priorities. This gives him a sense that there is more to learn about her, more to uncover, more to experience. And that sense of more is exactly what fuels attraction. Mystery creates emotional pacing. When she doesn't always reach out first, the connection doesn't move too fast or burn out prematurely. It unfolds slowly, giving him time to build an emotional bond rather than just a surface level attraction. He has to take initiative, which naturally makes him more aware of how he feels. Every step he takes becomes intentional. Every moment he initiates adds weight to the relationship. Mystery isn't about withholding, it's about allowing the connection to grow at a healthy, steady pace. It also protects her from overexposure. When someone is too available too quickly, the magic fades. Not because there's anything wrong with closeness, but because desire thrives in space. When he doesn't know everything about her immediately, he becomes more attentive. He listens more carefully. He watches more closely. He wants to understand who she is beneath the surface. Mystery encourages him to engage with her actively rather than passively. When a woman doesn't reach out first, she isn't creating distance. She's allowing desire to breathe. She is giving him the chance to experience the thrill of pursuit, the anticipation of connection, and the joy of earning her attention. Mystery reminds him that she is not just another moment in his life. She is an experience unfolding. And experiences like that are the ones men remember, desire, and go after with genuine intention. Self-respect is one of the most magnetic qualities a woman can carry, and it becomes unmistakably clear when she doesn't reach out first. Not because she is withholding affection, but because she understands her value so deeply that she doesn't feel the need to chase anyone for attention, validation, or reassurance. A woman grounded in self-respect moves differently. She shows interest without abandoning herself, she gives without overextending, and she stays open without making herself too accessible too soon. When a woman holds this kind of inner strength, a man senses it immediately. It shifts how he perceives her. It shifts how he approaches her. He realizes he cannot glide through the connection on charm alone. He must show up with consistency, sincerity, and presence. A woman who values herself sets an emotional standard without ever having to speak it. She doesn't demand effort, she inspires it. Not reaching out first is one of the ways she expresses this standard. It communicates that she honors her energy. She won't pour endlessly into someone who hasn't shown the willingness to meet her. She isn't waiting by the phone. She isn't monitoring his actions with anxiety. She trusts that the right man, the man who truly wants her, will make the effort to come closer. Her self-respect allows her to remain patient instead of panicked, calm instead of clingy, confident instead of uncertain. This emotional posture is incredibly attractive to men because it reflects emotional stability. Men crave connection with a woman who is not ruled by insecurity or fear of loss. A woman who doesn't reach out first shows that she is secure in herself. She has a full life, meaningful routines, friendships, goals, and passions that keep her grounded. Her happiness does not hinge on whether he sends a message today or tomorrow. This emotional independence creates an energy that draws him in. Men interpret self-respect as confidence, and confidence creates desire. When he realizes she has options, when he feels she is not dependent on him for emotional warmth, he steps up. He becomes more intentional. He becomes more careful. He becomes more motivated. Her self-respect challenges him to rise to her level rather than expecting her to lower herself for him. Men also feel emotionally safe with a woman who respects herself because she is less likely to lose her center in the relationship. She will communicate her needs with clarity, not desperation. She will express her standards without drama. She doesn't beg for love, force connection, or compromise her dignity to keep someone around. A man can trust that her presence is genuine, not driven by attachment anxiety. This stability makes him want to invest because he knows he's dealing with someone emotionally mature. Not reaching out first is not about being aloof. It's about maintaining her boundaries. It's a gentle reminder that she refuses to collapse her world into someone else's presence. She doesn't chase because she doesn't feel she has to. She understands that her value is shown by how she treats herself, not how much she tries to convince someone else of her worth. A woman who respects herself would rather miss a conversation than lose her dignity. She would rather wait for genuine interest than force attention. She would rather be alone than be half respected. And men admire this deeply. They become captivated by the woman who holds herself with that level of grace and discipline. They think about her more. They want to impress her. They want to earn her approval because they know she doesn't give it away easily. Her self-respect becomes the filter that separates the casual from the committed, the immature from the intentional, the curious from the serious. A woman who doesn't reach out first doesn't do it to play games. She does it because she trusts her worth so much that she knows the right man will reach for her. And that quiet confidence, the confidence to wait, to observe, to stay grounded, is exactly why men find her unforgettable.